Ghostbear's Legacy! Sort of. Okay, before we get too involved in the campaign, you see I have my two pilots here, because two heads are better than one, right? We are a twin-aisle jetliner. Ha ha ha, what a joke I make. So before we get into the first mission here, I want to take a brief look at what has changed. Aw, you picked the Mad Dog for me. You are my best friend. So, we're going to take a quick look at what has changed and been added and such to Ghostbear's Legacy, so I don't have to go over it as it comes along in every mission. So first of all, the instant action has been changed to... it's all randomized now, so you are only able to fly solo without any star mates, and the mechs chosen for you are randomized for whatever reason. Okay, so that's not that exciting. Combat variables. Only thing new is transitions, which I have turned off because they were annoying, so it's a good thing I actually looked in this thing to make sure they were right. Cockpit controls. I have already set them, I believe. Current config, custom config number 1. Okay, we'll take a quick look at that, just so you know what I'm doing. It's basically the same as I set it in MechWarrior 2, the first one. Up and down arrow for the throttle, left and right to steer. Turret turn and turret tilt. Okay, aiming is to the mouse, slave to the mouse. Everything else is pretty much the same. Glance left and right, jump jets on. I use the insert home page up and end keys for that, because the delete and page down keys are auto-defined to spin left and right for whatever reason. And then I have hotkeys to to shoot. Shoot the fire groups on demand, because I like to use chain fire, because you're better at heat management. Okay, so that's all changed. We'll set config and exit. Now let's see what new gifts the Kurultai has graced us with.
Mad Dog.
So first of all, the nice female narrator has been replaced with the guy from Red Alert for some reason, because I guess she was busy or something. Okay, let's go all the way to... we can't just click the chassis. Let's go all the way to... whoops. There we go. Firemaw's still here. The Incubus is added. It's a 30-ton mech that is pretty good. It's faster than the Kit Fox, which is always a plus. It's got better armor than the Kit Fox, I believe. Yes, it does. 5.5 tons compared to the Kit Fox's 4. And it's got a suite of lasers here, so it's overall a better machine than the Kit Fox, especially because the Kit Fox is limited in its torso twisting in this game for whatever reason.
Kit Fox, Horned Owl.
The Horned Owl is a new mech. So most of the mechs from this are picked from the 3055, I believe, technical readout. I don't think there's any from the 3058. I'll have to check on that. But I think this is all from 3055, which was released shortly after the 3050 technical readout back in the 90s, and added helped to flesh out the clan mechs and added a bunch of new Inner Sphere mechs as the campaign of the occupation zone and everything transpired in the Inner Sphere. The Horned Owl has a non-XL engine and jump jets and just basic lasers. So a lot of the mechs added in the 3055 technical readout for the clans were what would be known as garrison mechs, which would be encountered by the Inner Sphere as they occupied their planets. So they're not Omni-mechs, which means they don't really have, or they don't have, actually, any different variants for them. They're stuck like that, and stuck how they are, just like an Inner Sphere mech. Okay, moving right along. Gen 2C will be making its final appearance here because it is an unseen. It will be removed for mercenaries.
Phantom.
The Phantom is a interesting choice. It is an Omni-mech, Oh yes, also, you get to go up to 14 weapons now. How about that? That is some kind of insanity there. All those small lasers. So, the Phantom is a 40-ton, very fast Omni-Mech. It's an interesting choice for this game instead of the Puma, which is a 40-ton mech. Well, for some reason we're limited to 80 tons in instant action. Oh, that changes as you go along through the campaign, so that's another thing. Gets a bit unusual about Ghost Bear's Legacy. So, the Phantom is a decent heavy scout sort of thing. I would have preferred the Puma, but that shows up in MechWarrior 3. And the Puma is a nice 40-ton mech with dual ERPPCs, one in either arm.
Nova.
The Nova is here in its actual configuration, which is kind of a treat. Sort of. I don't believe the actual one has a small laser. I wonder why that is. But you do actually get all 12 medium lasers with the Nova now, thanks to the improvements in the game engine, although still can't torso twist.
STORMCROW.
STORMCROW's the same. Mad Dog is my best friend. Oh, hey look, I already have a Mad Dog that I created for fire support. And the Arrow 4, I'll get into that in a moment.
HELLBRINGER.
HELLBRINGER is the same, except that it now has its official configuration, because it has enough spots for the weaponry, and it does now mount the anti-missile system, which I will get to in a moment, which is another new
LINEBACKER.
weapon. The Linebacker, good old Linebacker. It's very fast. The 390 XL gives it a movement rate of 6'9", and only 60 tons. Has very heavy armor and a good layout of 2 ERPPCs and some backing missiles for it, and heat sinks, enough heat sinks to pretty much use the PPCs more or less freely. It's a very good alternative to the HELLBRINGER, so that's making its first appearance here, and it is a Omni-Mech. As you can see, it's got multiple configurations in it.
Rifleman.
Rifleman stays
GRIZZLY.
the same. GRIZZLY is a new mech. You can't have Ghost Bear's Legacy without the GRIZZLY. It's one of the signature mechs for Clan Ghost Bear. It mounts a Gauss rifle in its main config with 2 tons of ammo, so that makes it pretty nasty. And just a regular suite of backing weapons here. Has no XL engine, so it's a good brawling kind of mech. Makes the GRIZZLY moniker very useful. We'll be seeing a lot of the GRIZZLY in this campaign.
Summoner.
Summoner hasn't changed.
Timberwolf.
Timberwolf has been adjusted to now mount 2 machine guns instead of the 1 machine gun because of the way that some of the mechs in the 3050 technical readout were changed, because in the original 3050 technical readout the Battletech system was still going by quarter-ton increments. They changed that. See, it's still going by quarter tons here for 19.25 engine, but now it has the proper 2 machine guns instead. And I guess I don't know what I'm talking about there. But eventually, Battletech would move to a all half-ton system, half-ton increments. Anyway, the Timberwolf is now modeled properly. Do I have any? No, I don't have any configs. So this, I believe that in the actual game, 2 of these Streak SRMs are mounted rearward facing. Now we're not going to see that rearward facing weapons, because that would just be confusing and weird. Gargoyle hasn't changed, still as useless and fast as ever.
NAGA.
Naga's an all new mech, which this one's broken for some reason. It's supposed to mount 2 Arrow 4 systems in its primary config, but this one only has 3 small lasers. Not sure why that is. Why does it have 14 tons of single heat sinks? That is ridiculous. Okay, so this one is broken, but this is what it's supposed to look like. Has the 2 Arrow 4s, which is a new system here, and as you can see, they're still slaving the ammunition to each individual weapon. We would not see that fixed until Mercenaries, where you could have an ammunition pool. So, keep that in mind. That is just... What is the difference here? Oh, there's there's less ammunition in the... Whatever. I don't know what you're doing, MechWarrior 2 Ghostbearer's Legacy. Anyway, the NAGA is a fire support, dedicated fire support mech using the Arrow 4 system, which is an anomaly in the clans. They do not technically, or typically use that sort of standoff fire support with artillery. The Arrow 4 is actually an artillery piece. I'll get it out in a moment.
Warhammer.
Warhammer is still the same, hasn't changed.
Marauder.
That would also be its last appearance here. The HATAMOTO-CHI also has not changed. Also be its last appearance as an unseen mech. Warhawk is still the same in its adjusted configuration, where it does not include the targeting computer that it does in the board game rules, because the targeting computer was not modeled in the game, because you can't really work that way. Executioner makes its first appearance. The strange mech, sort of similar to the Highlander of the Inner Sphere. It's got a 4/6 movement rate with a big damn engine, and it's got jump jets. Very unusual to see a mech this heavy with jump jets, and it's got the cool jump pack looking thing on the back there, and the dual main guns here, which are actually large lasers, and the Gauss rifle is in the torso, I believe. Yes, the Executioner was actually in the 3050 technical readout, but it was not included in MechWarrior 2 for whatever reason. It's an Omni-Mech, frontline machine there. You'll be seeing quite a few appearances of the Executioner.
Direwolf.
Direwolf is still the same, still as headshot prone as ever.
KODIAK.
And of course, you can't have Ghostbearer's Legacy without the KODIAK, another signature mech of the Ghostbearer faction, mounting a big damn autocannon and a hell of a lot of lasers. We already saw the KODIAK in the introductory cutscene, I should say. This one doesn't have jump jets like it does in the video. There's a KODIAK fire support that I must have used to rain hellfire upon my enemies with. Oh, 2 Arrow 4s. So I did it way back in the day when I was still doing the playthroughs without commentary. I actually did attempt a playthrough of this game, and it did not work as well as I had hoped it would. For various reasons, I was not able to finish it. So, I do have some leftover mechs in here from that attempt. That would have been, gosh, 2009, 2010. Oh, you're dating yourself, L1011 widebody. You're almost up to your Salama years here.
Stone Rhino.
Oh my goodness, the Stone Rhino, which is a scary-looking, big damn thingamajig. Ha! If I may say so myself, it's basically the mech that will ruin your day if you do not pay attention to it. It is an unseen. As you can tell, it has more of that Japanese influence to it. It's from one of the various Japanese animes. One of the many mechs that was licensed to be shown in paper form, but not in video game form, that FASA thought they had the rights to. Anyway, the Stone Rhino has 2 big damn Gauss rifles, one in either arm, and the top gun is supposed to be a pulse laser, because you can't fit a Gauss rifle in the center torso. That doesn't work that way. It takes up too many critical slots. It does have jump jets, somehow, and it's basically just a big, heavy thing. It's sort of like the most, I would put it as technically the most fearsome 100-ton assault mech that the clans do have in their arsenal. I would put it right up against the Atlas. And because it was an unseen, it was not seen, again, by definition. This one is kind of ridiculous. I don't believe it's not an Omni-Mech. What the hell? That is some kind of crazy there. And 2 jump jets. And a 400 XL engine. That is... okay, whatever. There's all kinds of weirdness going on here. They did throw in a few alternate configurations that are not actually real. One of the interesting things about the Stone RHINO is that it was actually designed... well, in the fluff text, it was designed as to be a battering ram, as you can tell with the Gauss rifles here that stick out so much. It was actually one of the very few mechs that the clans would use for physical attacks, which is mostly considered dishonorable by the clans because we can't have our giant robots punching each other. That would be uncivilized. But in the fluff text, it mentions that it has shock absorbers in the barrels so that it uses the barrels to break down walls and stuff. Just kind of a little interesting side note there.
Raven.
And here are our inner sphere mechs as they are created. So you'll notice that the use mass of the inner sphere Raven is only 24.5 tons instead of 35 tons because it is forced to use the inner sphere, or the clan, I should say, components, because the inner sphere ones are not modeled yet. It hasn't modeled the split between the difference of the inner sphere and the clan components. So it's a bit not correct, and also the typical inner sphere Raven, not the raisin, that would be silly. What kind of grape ape are we talking about here? The actual Raven is an electronic countermeasures warfare mech. And of course, that's not quite modeled in this game. We would see that more properly modeled in Mech Commander, not quite adhering to the board game rules, but a better simulation of the feel and look of what the electronic warfare various elements are. We'll be seeing the Raven quite a lot in this campaign. It has no variants. The Raven is an interesting mech because it was actually introduced in the Capellan Confederation, the Capellan Confederation source book, which is also known as House Liao. And I've mentioned Liao quite a few times. The Capellan Confederation is a Chinese-Korean-y sort of flavored faction that occupied a small slice in the lower section of the inner sphere. It was actually introduced before the rules for level 2 were set down, and it had special rules created just for it that were introduced in the Capellan Confederation source book in, I want to say it was 1989, but don't quote me on that. It came out before the 3050 technical readout because the 3050 technical readout included a lot of level 2 equipment for the clan invasion, but this actually had some level 2 quote-unquote equipment in the original release of it, which is interesting. And it had a specialized communication system which was created just for it to fit in here, and it had its own special rules for using it. And eventually it would be rebuilt in the 3055. Is it 3055 or 3050? I can't remember off the top of my head. Shame on you, L1011 widebody. Also, shame on you for using contractions. What are you, some kind of freebirth? Anyway, it would be rebuilt in the whatever technical readout it came out with to include the Beagle probe and the, what is it, the Guardian ECM suite and the various other things. Anyway.
HATAMOTO-CHI.
The HATAMOTO-CHI, as you can tell, the samurai-looking thing here is one of the signature mechs of the Draconis Combine, and the Draconis Combine is House Kurita. Always be up to date on which house is which faction, because you can't have enough confusion in BattleTech. We need more. As you can tell, it's got this samurai look to it. The Draconis Combine, obviously, as you can tell by the name, is the Japanese-flavored faction of BattleTech, because you can't have big damn giant battling robots without a Japanese faction. HATAMOTO-CHI is a very well-balanced machine. As you can tell, it's 19 tons less because it's using the clan components here. So good on the developers for modeling the intent of these mechs. It is going to be slightly more effective, obviously, because the ERPPC clan version has longer range. It does use the SRM-6. So it has basically the same layout in this model as the Thug would have, which is another 80-ton mech with 2 PPCs and SRMs. I don't recall off the top of my head what the difference is in a technical sense from them, but obviously it's very iconic. It's one of the mechs that the Cretans like to use a lot, so, and we will be facing the Draconis Combine in this campaign, so we'll be seeing quite a few HATAMOTO-CHIs. No, not
Victor.
variant. The Victor is another mech that is seen quite frequently throughout the Inner Sphere. This would be modeled the level 2 variant, because it has the Gauss rifle, which is a level 2 equipment. The original Victor, I believe, had an AC-10 instead. So what happened is that the Inner Sphere level 1 equipment lasted up until about 3049, when they suddenly were like, hey, look, we found some lost tech, which is what they would call it, because everything in the future has to be a compound word. And that would be the level 2 equipment. Now, it was not quite Star League era equipment. It was a little bit weaker than that. And it obviously weaker than the clans, because the clans made improvements over the 250 years they were off twiddling their thumbs. I say 300 years, I should say. Anyway, the Victor is one of the many mechs that was upgraded to include a configuration that is more or less similar to what it was in the Star League era, slightly underpowered with its Inner Sphere type weapons. As you can see, this one uses up all of its tons because the Gauss rifle is essentially interchangeable with the AC-10 as far as weight and criticals. I believe the AC-10 uses 5 criticals and the Gauss rifle uses... no. Yes? 5 criticals and the Gauss rifle uses 6 for the clans. It's different for the Inner Sphere, but we're not going to be dealing with the Inner Sphere versions of these weaponry yet. As you can see, it also has the jetpacks on the back, which looks cool.
Annihilator.
The Annihilator, I believe, aren't there 2 N's in Annihilator? Don't quote me on that. Anyway, the Annihilator is a strange mech. It's very slow. Very, very slow, but it mounts 4 big damn autocannons that will shred you to bits if you let it get close enough to hit you with it. And it's almost half of its tonnage is taken up by weapons, which is absurd. Yes, the Annihilator is a deadly, deadly mech in the board game. However, it's a bit... I don't know. It's not quite as powerful in the iterations here, mostly because the speed is such a detriment in the actual playing of it. Does it have any variants? Nope, it's a regular old mech.
Atlas.
And of course, the good old Atlas is represented here in its level 2 configuration with a Gauss rifle that has 4 tons of ammunition. I'm not sure if it's got that many in the actual configuration. The Atlas, one of the iconic mechs, it would make its appearance on the, what was it, the 3058? 3025, I should say. No, not 3058, that would be ridiculous. 3025 technical readout, where it's stomping all over everyone. Level 1 version carries a AC-20 that will rip you to pieces. It's basically just the big damn assault mech, the big bad boss of the game. The Atlas, very iconic mech. This one's modeled with big clumsy boxes instead of hands, and you can't see the cockpit, but in the actual art it's got a Death's Head, what's called the Death's Head cockpit, which is made to look like a head. So it looks like a dude, which is pretty cool. Let's see, and I believe that's it. Okay. All right. Thank you all. Wait, no, what am I talking about? We got to look at weapons. What's new in the weapon department? Let's strip our atlas of cool stuff. What have we got here? We have quite a few new weapons. We have the Flamer, which is a flamethrower with a poorly chosen name. So the flamethrower is actually modeled in this game. It has a range of 10. That can't be right. Well, it's got a very, very short range, and it's modeled to give 2 damage apparently for some reason, but it increases the heat of the mech that it strikes. The anti-missile system is one of the very, very few. I think it might be the only level 2 up until there's a level 3 laser anti-missile system, but I believe the anti-missile system is the only purely defensive weapon that is modeled. Is basically what it says, anti-missile system, right on the tin. It shoots down missiles and uses ammunition like it hasn't eaten in a year. So it's always good to take more tons of that. Now the rules for it in the actual board game are a bit interesting because it spews all kinds of weapons. You have to roll I believe it's 1d6 to find out how many actual shots it uses to strike down some missiles, and then you roll against the missile table to see how many it hits. Always a good thing to take that with you, so that's modeled in this game now. Gauss Rifle makes its return. All the autocannons you want to play with, they're still all broken, more or less. Machine gun is still the same. The Narc beacon is a missile that does not do any damage. It's a homing beacon, which means that when you strike an enemy mech with it, it's supposed to make your SRMs and LRMs and etc. lock on automatically to the target without waiting for the timer. It's more effective in the board game. One of the various weapons that's more effective in the board game than it is modeled here, so I've never played around with the Narc. The Inferno SRM and the Inferno SSRM2, essentially SSRMs with flamethrower damage added to them. Basically what it says on the tin. We only get modeled the 2-shot ones, for whatever reason. Basically the flamer equivalent of a missile. And the Arrow 4, which is ridiculously overpowered. It says a range of 1,000, but it actually has a range out to, I want to say it's a complete possible range of 1.8 kilometers, but I think it might be 1.6. We'll see that in the game. You only have a targeting range of 1.8 kilometers in the game. In this game, I should say. The Arrow 4 is treated as a missile. It fires one big damn missile that does all the damage, and it seems to be even more overpowered in this game than it is in the actual board game for reasons I'm not sure. It seems to cause splash damage as well as regular damage, which just seems like overkill to me. It's pretty much the kind of the haxer weapon of the game. You can load, like you saw earlier, the Mad Dog that I made with 2 Arrow 4s will just basically destroy anything from that you can see on the board game. Or on your line of sight, I should say. Takes up a lot of criticals, takes up all the criticals. It's one of the weapons that is typically taken up in 2 slots, 2 portions of your mech's criticals, I should say, the arm and the torso. Usually it's put in the torso, and the extra slots are in the arm. That's just how it rolls. You only get 5 shots per ton, so always make sure to have a lot of that. I'm going to try my best to refrain from using the Arrow 4 because it is so ridiculously overpowered, but if it comes down to it, I might be sticking one of those in there, and it is just, it's a beast. It's, oop, ignore that message. sound indicator. It's a beast. And it's ridiculously overpowered. In the actual board game, it's treated as a standoff weapon, which is, there's different rules in the board game for artillery weapons. It's actually technically an artillery piece, which means that it can fire, its distance range is measured in maps. So if you had more than one map that you were playing on, when you had a very detailed game, you could fire it at a target as long as you had somebody, one of your friendly mechs that had line of sight, and it required, I believe it required a tag, what was called the tag target acquisition gear laser, which is a spotter laser. It's basically just like you would see in reality for something like the laser guided bomb, like the Paveway that the United States Air Force uses. You would need a scouter mech to light up your target, and then you would rain Arrow 4s on it. And the Arrow 4 was used only, the only canonical mechs that used it in up to 3050, and I don't know if it's in 3062 using, or yeah, 3060 or 3062 mechs technical readouts. But up until 3058, the only mechs it's used in are a variant of the catapult in the inner sphere and the NAGA in the clan's arsenal. So not quite modeled the way it is here. The actual Arrow 4 is not a homing missile. There are homing variants of it, which are... I never got into the Arrow 4 because I never had anybody who was dedicated enough to play Battletech with me over multiple maps and stuff like that. So, unfortunately, you know, that's the problem that you have growing up in the late 90s and the early 2000s in a place where there's no gaming community. C'est la vie, as it is. Anyway, I think that's going to wrap everything up that's new in the game. Obviously, there's be new planets and other things that we will encounter as we go along. But that should wrap everything up here. Thank you all for watching, and until the next time, be excellent to each other, Quiaf. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, or subscribe. You can also interact with me on Twitter and Facebook at L1011Widebody. And if you'd like, you can pledge to sponsor me at patreon.com/L1011Widebody.